I'm not going to, again, speak to the units here or what personnel were involved in this, but this was done only with UAVs, and again, it was a result of a very careful, thoughtful, deliberate, I would say almost painstaking decision-making process led by the President and his national security team to make sure that the target was valid and that the tools to go after that target were the best ones. And again, I say the results speak for themselves. Zawahiri's gone, and nobody in his family got hurt.
So then you're saying this had nothing to do with sort of having any kind of plausible deniability if the mission were to not succeed? I mean, was that even part of the calculation here?
No.
And a quick question on the speaker's trip to Taiwan. I mean, I know you're saying everything China has done was largely sort of anticipated, but from all the reactions you have seen so far, are there any that have caused, are cause of concern for this administration?
Look, I think just broadly speaking, it's concerning to see them react in the way they've reacted. There's no need for that. There's no justification to turn this into a crisis. So it's unfortunate that they have already chosen to act in ways we kind of predicted that they would. We would again remind leaders in Beijing that there's nothing unprecedented about this trip. I heard a Chinese spokesman earlier today was saying that it violates their sovereignty. There's no violation of sovereignty. Speaker going is perfectly consistent with other members of Congress going, as I said, including this year. So there's just no reason to amp this up. And we're not going to participate in that. As I said at the outset, we're not going to do saber rattling. We're simply going to do what we have to do to make sure that her trip is safe and secure, and that we can meet our security commitments in the region writ broadly, and also to make sure that we can keep those lines of communication open, because it's important, again, particularly when things are tense.
So how should we interpret that in that case, John? Just a quick follow-up, if I may. How should we interpret in that case, the U.S. Navy parking warships to the east of Taiwan? How should we interpret, the Chinese warplanes flying over the line, divvying up the Taiwan Strait?
Well, as a former naval officer, I can assure you we do not park warships anywhere, but we deploy them as appropriate. And I'm not going to speak to individual unit movements right now. We have the 7th Fleet is present in the Western Pacific, based in Japan. We have a lot of naval assets in the region, and they're constantly moving around, and they're constantly conducting operations and exercises, to include what we call freedom of navigation exercises or operations.
Reaction to what is happening there?
I'm not going to talk about force level movements with respect to this.
James, are you ready?
Oh, my goodness.
Okay.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Admiral, one on Taiwan, if you would, and one on the Middle East very quickly. You keep telling us that U.S. policy hasn't changed and that the United States does not support an independent Taiwan. And yet, if we look at what Speaker Pelosi tweeted from the ground in Taiwan, her post actually states, quote, "America stands with Taiwan." We all know that Taiwan harbors ambitions toward independence. When the Speaker of the House says, "We stand with Taiwan, America stands with Taiwan," how can the Chinese construe that as anything else but that you're supporting independence?
I'll let the Speaker speak for herself. All I can tell you, James, is what I told you yesterday. And I'm happy to repeat it. Nothing has changed about our adherence to the One China policy. Nothing has changed about our stance on Taiwan independence, which is that we do not support Taiwan independence. And nothing has changed, James, about our commitments and how seriously we take those commitments under the Taiwan Relations Act. Everything is consistent, James. I can't say that any more clearly.
So when she says America stands with Taiwan, is she misstating administration policy?
You should talk to Speaker Pelosi about her comments. I'm not going to parse. I'm not saying that, James. I'm not going to speak for Speaker Pelosi. That's beyond my writ. I can speak for the administration when it comes to national security policy, and nothing has changed about our policy.
On the Middle East, very quickly, Is the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps presently engaged in the conduct or support of terror activity?
I think I know where this is getting.
You don't have to know.
No, I think I know where you're getting with this. Look, I think the president's been very, very clear.
It's a yes or no. Are they or are they not conducting or supporting terror activity?
The Iranian state is
IRGC is what I asked.
a state supporter of terrorism, and they support terrorist networks throughout the region. And when asked if he would be willing to lift the FTO designation of the IRGC as a function of the negotiations with Iran over the nuclear deal, the president said no.
But are you able to say that IRGC supports terror operations?
I think I've answered the
James,
question.
We're moving on. We're going to do 3, you, and then
Which ones? Okay.
we're going to do.
You know who you're pointing at. I do not.
I am so sorry. Then we're going to go to Ed, and then we're going to end with
Okay.
Tyler.
Okay, Brittany Griner's trial in Russia resumed earlier today, and a sentencing is expected potentially by the end of the week. Considering the fact that Russia made that counter offer that the U.S. said was not a serious offer, how
Yes, sir.
confident is the U.S. that they will take such an offer for a prisoner swap? And if they do not, has the administration already talked about other plans of action to bring her home?
Obviously, we're not going to negotiate this thing in public, and I do appreciate the question, but we've made a serious proposal, made a serious offer, and we urge the Russians to take that offer because it was done with sincerity, and we know we can back it up. But I don't think it's helpful for Paul or for Brittany, for us from the podium to get into a back and forth with the Russians over what the negotiations might or might not look like going forward. Bottom line is, we want to see Brittany and Paul come home to their families where they belong, and the president takes that responsibility seriously, and so seriously, in fact, that an offer has been made, a proposal has been put forth to affect that outcome, and we urge the Russians to take it.
And one follow-up, I spoke to Reverend William Barber of the Poor People's Campaign, and he said something that Reverend Al Sharpton has said, that a group of diverse religious leaders would like to take a delegation trip to Russia if such negotiations do not work to bring Brittany home, to make some type of moral, compassionate, humanitarian, compelling argument to bring her home. Would the U.S. support a delegation trip if your negotiations were unsuccessful?
Yeah, I don't want to speculate on a hypothetical here. I would just tell you that we are working hard, government to government, to get Paul and Brittany home. So much so that we did put forth a very serious proposal, and I think I'm just going to leave it there.
Good, Ed.
I want to ask you about oil. So I saw that the State Department approved a potential sale for Patriot missiles to Saudi Arabia. The trip last month from the president between the king and the prince happened. So tomorrow OPEC decides to increase production or not. How confident are you that the Saudis will push OPEC to increase production?
I won't get ahead of the Saudis or OPEC. I think you can understand I wouldn't speak to that. We had good discussions with them on the president's trip to include productive discussions on energy security. But look, this is a decision that OPEC has to make, and I wouldn't want to get ahead of that.
But do you expect
Regardless.
But do you expect the Saudis to? I mean, we're giving them weapons now. We had the meeting between the king and the president. Do you expect them to help?
Yeah,
us
the
out?
question kind of presupposes there's some sort of a quid pro quo here, and that's just not the case. We provide defense articles like Patriots, sell those to Saudi Arabia because they have a legitimate need for air defense. In fact, one of the things they discussed on this trip was the potential or possibility for some sort of integrated air and missile defense throughout the region, and the Patriot batteries would contribute to that. And yes, he met with the king and the Crown Prince and his leadership team, as well as all the leaders of the GCC +3 when he was out there, because there's a range of issues to talk about. Energy security was on the agenda, but it wasn't the only agenda. I'm not going to speculate about what OPEC might or might not do. But I do want to just come back to one point, and that is how seriously the president takes the issue of supply in the energy market out there. And he has worked domestically to improve and increase that supply by releasing 1 million barrels a day all the way. This will take us all the way through October. That's nothing to sneeze at. That has actually helped stabilize the oil market. And OPEC, as Karine has told you, just this summer has increased by 50% their production for July and August already. And that has helped stabilize the market. And you're seeing the price now coming down, depending on which variant you want to look at. It's either $93 a barrel or it's 99. Either way, it's come down here in recent days. That's all good. That's all goodness for the market, because more supply means more stability, and it helps depressurize the prices, which then will get hopefully translated down to the pump. So the president's working hard here at home, increasing the numbers of permits that are out there, and he's certainly working hard on the world stage with world leaders to try to again help stabilize that market.
Okay, we're going to take Tyler, and then the foreign cooler, we should take him as well since you're here. But Tyler, go ahead.
John, just a quick question. Did the president alert former President Obama or Bush or Trump after the strike before he informed the public? President Obama did so when the U.S. killed Osama bin Laden. I'm wondering if there's any communication between the current president and his predecessors in that last
Tyler, I don't have. I'd have to go back and check. I don't know if there was outreach to former commanders in chief after the fact. There was no notifications to anybody before the strike.
Lila, you have the last.
Yes, thank you. Do you believe that Afghanistan is now emerging as a safe haven for terrorists?
No. Because we've made it clear that we're not going to allow that to happen. Now, can attack the homeland. You shouldn't take away from the strike that every single terrorist, whether they're card carrying or not, is going to be the victim of an airstrike by the United States or anybody else. But if we have credible evidence that a terrorist operating in Afghanistan or anywhere else, and as I said earlier, the threat has metastasized well beyond Afghanistan, the president will take action to defend this country and the American people.
And secondly, to what extent the Chinese actions last 1 week is impacting peace and stability in the neighborhood?
I'm sorry, can you say that?
To what extent the Chinese actions is impacting the peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region?
Well, it's certainly not helping.